Welcome, everyone, to the Montana Volleyball Press Conference. We're joined today by head coach Allison Lawrence. Coach Lawrence, getting ready for a road trip, always a tough road trip to Sacramento and Portland State, but sitting in a good spot, kind of a jam-packed top of the standings in the Big Sky Conference through 3 weeks. So what are you looking forward to as you get back on the road after a couple weeks at home?
I think looking forward to another tight weekend to play. I think, like you said, Sac is a tough gym to play in, so is Portland State. So those teams always play well at home, and I think it's a big test for us, especially after Saturday and our loss to the Cats, about how resilient we are and just getting back to work, which is a great thing to be able to work on. And I think so many great things from Saturday that we want to carry over, and then parts of our game we want to address before we play again. So kind of typical, recovery sort of transition things. But I think serve pass in both these gyms in particular will be important. So working on that and just managing road stuff.
Allison, can you just kind of talk about the immediate reaction from the team right after a tough loss like that, and what gives you confidence going into the road trip that's coming up?
Yeah, I think, anytime you're on the losing end of the rivalry, there's a lot of disappointment and a lot of emotional sort of ups and downs after that. So that's to be expected. And I think you can kind of have a hangover either way as far as off a loss or off a win, and that was such a close loss to where I think we have to take pieces of that game that really worked for us and take victories where we got them, and then swallow the loss in ways where it really doesn't do us any good to wallow in it either. It's one game, and we play them again, and all the things. So I think as big as that game is and can feel, it also needs to be Monday today. So regardless of what happened, today would have arrived, and we need to get to work. So that's kind of what we'll do, and I think that's a great strength of this group. So I'm not worried about their ability to focus on what we need to this week.
Can you kind of talk about what it was like playing in front of the biggest crowd that volleyball's ever drawn, and how you have maybe hope to see it continue to grow on such a fun night like that?
Yeah, it's hard in your head when it's all over not to think, oh my gosh, we drew this big crowd and we didn't give them what we wanted to, or they left like disappointed like we were as far as our home fans. And so, you always think in your mind, like, what if people stop coming, or those types of irrational thoughts. But I think it was a great match. Just a well, put on game by our event staff and all the things. And I think that, I don't know, I'm not too worried after the irrational thoughts of 1 a.m. on Saturday night. I'm not too worried about what this team has put on the floor and what people are invested in. And I think being a fan and being a part of Griz Nation is all about showing up through the highs and lows. And so, it was an incredible atmosphere, though. It was so loud, so fun. And that's what you expect from the rivalry. And I expect the rivalry to go 5. And I think I'm always a little bit surprised in the years when it hasn't, either for us or against us. So that's exactly what you want. And then you just got to go find out when it's that day. So I really love the crowd, and I hope everyone is hungry for more, because that's what I felt in the gym. So I can't wait for it.
This week, is it kind of weird seeing a team for the second time already, with Sac State, and then obviously with Portland State, it'll be kind of a new prep. So what's that like, kind of navigating this week when you've already seen a team, but then it'll be a new team as well?
Yeah, that is a really weird thing to see one team twice in 2 weeks and then not see Eastern Washington until November. So I think there's some wrinkles to our schedule that couldn't be avoided just with how we need to rotate through. And so Sac has done some really good things at home, and they beat Portland State on the road. They've got a nice resume going right now, and we saw them first out of the gate. So I think they're a lot different, and we're a lot different. And so I think it's just I almost feel like we need to go into it a little bit more like we haven't played this team before, like a little bit of a fresher start. And I think them at home is they're particularly efficient, and so I'm excited for that challenge. And we haven't won there in a while. Looking at you, because I don't remember exactly how long, but I think in my time, for sure, we have not gotten a win in the nest. So we are going to go there and look to kind of be in that gym and play well and do all of those things. So, yeah.
What's something you're going to watch your team early on in that match, how they
At SAC. I think always there, again, not to put too much emphasis on it, but I think a lot in that gym, because I think the difference between like our little bit of elevation and sea level and how the ball moves and floats, I think it's ball control. So a lot of times serving and passing, if you can establish those things well, then that match feels really close and really competitive. And then you watch teams go there. And we've, in years past been a team that's gone there that doesn't, like, something about us feels off or whatever. And then you can see really lopsided sets and kind of have to fight your way out of some big holes and some big runs. And so, again, there's nothing about that happens to be true all the time, but it's just a pattern that, there's definitely a dynamic there. It's a hard gym, either to track the ball or whatever. Their band is really loud. There's also like some really fun things about that environment. So I think it's ball handling. They serve really well at home. They serve there all the time for their own practices. So you see that a lot in home gyms, but they're particularly kind of tough servers at home. So I think the ball control piece, and then I think when that's there, our offense tends to take care of itself. And then it's just containing their big hitters, 11 and 12, 12 their middle, has been going off kind of the whole season. So containing her, and then 11, since Big Sky conference play has started, is, I believe, still leading the conference in kills per set. But she was up there like over 6 just going into last weekend. I haven't checked the stats from this last weekend. So yeah, we'll be looking at things like that.
and like sports, sometimes it's such a fine line, right? Like if that fifth set was a little different, you're feeling completely kind of maybe different going into a tough road
Yeah.
trip. It goes a certain way. Now you're going to a place that you haven't had a lot of success in. So maybe facing like that real adversity for the first time this year. So I guess like what's that like with that on the horizon when it had been going kind of a different way to this?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, one that our staff has to grapple with, because in our own minds, I think this is a good personal check and a look in the mirror too of like, I don't know if we talked about this last week or not, but just how much of an idiot results can make you, and I think, you either assume that you're better than you are or things feel worse than they are. And I think it can go in those extremes when really most of the time, you're not as bad as you seem or as good as you seem. And so I think really taking that middle path and removing emotions and removing reactions and just being exactly where we are. We're in a great spot. We're playing great volleyball. We're beating great teams and we're pushing great teams late into sets. And so I think we just have to take confidence from that and know that also, we'd be fools also to assume that this wasn't going to be very hard. And I think in the conference, you're seeing that across the board. Everyone has a loss. And so I think for those reasons, it's how tough we're willing to be or how much we're going to wallow in like, well, wait, I thought this doesn't feel as comfortable as I thought it would. And so I think that's top down, exactly what we need to be focusing on. But yeah, tough one.
Any other questions? Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys.